They say in deep space, you only fear what you can see. They lied. On this planet, the true terror doesn't have a face, it only has a whisper, and it hunts from the shadows. The Stardust Drifter Dash, my home, my lifeline, was a tumbling coffin. The unknown phenomenon, a wave of pure, silent null energy, had ripped through her shields, cooked her systems, and sent her spiraling out of the black. I, Kalen Vance, cynical cargo pilot, survivor of 1,000 cosmic mishaps, was now strapped into a failing escape pod, plunging through an alien atmosphere that reeked of ozone and something sharp, metallic, like burnt bone. My internal monologue, usually a dry commentary on life's cruel ironies, was a frantic scramble for survival. Impact in T-60. Brace. Survive. Find the beacon. Get out. The crash was less an impact and more prolonged, tearing scream of metal against rock. The pod slammed through what felt like an endless canopy of gnarled, titanic trees, their massive trunks unseen in the perpetual twilight. Sparks showered the cockpit. Alarms shrieked. Then, silence. A profound, suffocating silence, broken only by the rasp of my own breath and the frantic drumming of my heart against my ribs. I was alive. Barely. My left arm, pinned beneath a twisted section of the control panel, screamed in agony. Blood, warm and slick, seeped through the tears in my flight suit. The pod was an impaled wreck, half buried in soft, yielding earth, surrounded by a dense, primeval forest that swallowed the faint light filtering from above. The perpetual twilight was oppressive, the air thick with dampness, the scent of decaying vegetation, and something else, something that prickled the back of my throat, sharp and metallic. My primary goal, the emergency beacon. It was designed to send a low-frequency distress signal, powerful enough to pierce nebulae, but its range would be severely limited by this planet's dense atmosphere and the forest's overwhelming biomass. I needed to get clear, or at least get to the wreckage of the Drifter Dash. She carried a long-range transponder, if any of her systems were still alive. I freed my arm, a guttural cry escaping my lips as pain lanced through me. My hand, trembling, went to my utility belt, my multi-tool, my emergency medkit, my blaster. All there. Small mercies. My cynical mind clung to them. At least I'm not entirely unarmed. Yet, I pushed open the mangled hatch, the metal groaning in protest. The forest was an alien nightmare. Trees with twisted, black bark, their branches draped with weeping tendrils that resembled desiccated nerves. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed softly on the forest floor, casting an eerie, shifting glow that only enhanced the shadows. The ground was uneven, covered in a thick, spongy moss that silenced my footsteps. Every rustle in the unseen canopy, every distant snap of a twig, fueled my growing paranoia. I was an intruder in a world that felt ancient, predatory. I moved slowly, painfully, my injured arm throbbing, leaning heavily on the twisted frame of the escape pod. The perpetual twilight deepened, the air growing colder. I needed shelter, and I needed to find a way out of this suffocating green hell. The dread was a physical weight, pressing down on me, urging me to move faster, to find an answer, to escape the profound isolation of this alien nightmare. As I stumbled deeper into the forest, following the faint hope of finding the Drifter's larger wreckage, I started to notice things. Small things, at first. A snapped branch too clean, too precise to be natural. A pattern of scraped bark on a colossal tree trunk, too high for any natural predator I knew. A fleeting shadow, glimpsed just at the edge of my peripheral vision, melting into the deeper gloom before I could focus. My internal monologue, a cold, clinical assessment of threats, shifted. Not alone. Definitely not alone. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The chill wasn't from the planet's temperature. It was primal. The hunter becoming the hunted. Then, a low-frequency vibration. It wasn't a sound I heard with my ears, but a resonance that permeated the very air, vibrating in my teeth, in my bones, making my internal organs subtly hum. It was deep, unsettling, a silent pressure that sent a spike of pure, unadulterated fear through me. It felt like a whisper inside my mind, a presence that was aware, that was observing Dash. I froze, heart hammering. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The bioluminescent fungi pulsed with a sudden, agitated rhythm. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen tension. And then I saw it. Undeniably. Not a shadow. not a trick of the light. A creature, perfectly camouflaged against the dark bark of a monstrous tree, shifted. Its skin was sleek, dark, chitinous, reflecting the faint ambient glow with an oily sheen. Its limbs were elongated, unnaturally slender, yet powerfully muscled, ending in razor-sharp claws that clicked softly against the bark as it moved. Its head was tapered, devoid of discernible eyes or features, only a smooth, unsettling curve. And as it turned, slowly, silently, towards me, I saw the faint, almost imperceptible gleam of a secondary inner jaw, retracting into its maw. It made no sound, no growl, no hiss, only that low-frequency vibration, intensifying, drilling into my skull, a silent whisper that resonated with my primal fear. It was watching me, studying me, savoring the fear. My breath hitched. My blaster, useless. My multi-tool, a child's toy. This was no animal. This was a predator of terrifying intelligence, of chilling alienness. And I was its prey. The initial desolation of the planet now felt like a prelude. The true horror had just begun. I was being hunted by an alien intelligence, a silent, relentless pursuit that threatened to unravel my sanity. The creature remained perfectly still, a statue of predatory stillness, its sleek, dark form blending almost seamlessly with the shadowed bark of the ancient tree. The only indication of its presence was the persistent, low-frequency vibration resonating in my very bones, and the chilling sensation of its silent, intelligent gaze boring into me. My internal monologue, a torrent of frantic, desperate thoughts, struggled against the overwhelming primal fear. Run, now, before it moves, before it does whatever it does. But I was frozen, locked in its terrifying, silent appraisal. The perpetual twilight of the forest seemed to deepen around us, the bioluminescent fungi pulsing with an agitated rhythm, casting dancing shadows that mimicked the creature's silent menace. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen tension, punctuated only by the ragged sound of my own breath. Then, a subtle shift in the vibration. It intensified, then pulsed, not with a regular rhythm, but with a complex pattern that seemed to directly interact with my fear. It was like a whisper inside my mind, a cold, alien presence touching the raw nerve of my survival instinct. It wanted me to run. It wanted the chase. It was toying with me. My legs, screaming in protest, finally obeyed the primal urge. I spun, stumbling, my injured arm throbbing, and plunged deeper into the dense undergrowth, not caring about direction, only about escape. The forest closed around me, a suffocating embrace of twisting branches and unseen shadows. I ran until my lungs burned, until every muscle screamed in protest, until the rhythmic pounding of my feet on the spongy moss was deafening in my ears. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The fear of what might be gaining on me, silent and relentless, was a tangible presence at my back. The low-frequency vibration followed, a persistent hum that never quite left my skull, even amidst the crashing sounds of my desperate flight. It modulated, subtly, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, an unseen conductor orchestrating my terror. Every rustle in the dense foliage, every distant snap of a twig that I thought I heard, fueled my growing paranoia. My mind, already frayed by the crash and the isolation, began to unravel. Was that sound real? Or was it the creature, playing with my senses, eroding my mental state? I found temporary refuge in a shallow cave, its entrance obscured by cascading vines and thick, bioluminescent fungi. I collapsed, gasping for breath, my body aching, raw, bleeding. The cold, damp air seeped into my torn flight suit. The profound isolation of this alien world pressed in on me, suffocating. I huddled in the deepest part of the cave, my blaster clutched in my trembling hand. The fungi on the cave walls pulsed with a soft, shifting glow, casting dancing shadows that seemed to twist into alien forms. My eyes darted around, seeing threats in every patch of darkness, every crevice. My internal monologue was a desperate, panicked chant. Safe. You're safe. Just for a moment. But the low-frequency vibration persisted, a faint, rhythmic pulse that seemed to emanate from the very rock of the cave. It was closer now, too close, and it carried a chilling familiarity, a silent whisper that resonated with my deepest fears. It was not just one, a faint click, not a twig, not natural, a subtle, metallic sound, like claws against stone. It came from deeper within the cave. My blood ran cold. My breath hitched. They were here? Already. They had been waiting. My enhanced hearing, a relic from my pilot days, picked up the faintest sound of liquid dripping. Not water. Something thicker. And then the scent. Pungent, metallic, like ozone and raw meat. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness of the cave. Sleek, dark, chitinous. It moved with a silent, predatory grace, its elongated limbs unfolding with unnerving slowness. Its head, tapered and smooth, turned, and the faint gleam of a secondary inner jaw, slick with some unseen fluid, emerged and retracted, a terrifying, silent threat. It was not alone. From the shadows, another emerged, then another, and another. They melted out of the darkness, their movements perfectly synchronized, a unified, ruthless hunting collective. Their dark forms seemed to absorb the faint bioluminescent light, making them almost invisible against the gloom. They didn't make a sound. Only that low-frequency vibration, intensifying, vibrating in my skull, a silent chorus of predatory awareness. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. My blaster felt like a child's toy against these monstrous, intelligent predators. My initial desperation had devolved into pure, unadulterated terror. They weren't just physically pursuing me. They were playing with me, studying me, savoring my fear. And the only sounds I truly heard were the whispers of my own encroaching madness, echoing their unseen, chilling presence. This was a nightmare, and I was trapped, deep within its suffocating embrace. The cave became a claustrophobic tomb, the air thick with the metallic tang of fear and the oppressive, silent presence of the creatures. They surrounded me, their sleek, dark forms barely visible in the shifting bioluminescent gloom, their vertical pupils, now I could see them, faint, glowing slits, fixed on me. The low-frequency vibration was a constant, agonizing thrum inside my head, a chorus of silent, predatory awareness that drove me to the brink of sanity. My internal monologue was a fractured echo of raw terror. No escape. Nowhere to run. They want to play. And I am the game. My supplies were dwindling. My medkit, almost empty. My blaster, a mere toy against their numbers. Every rustle of the cascading vines at the cave entrance, every distant snap of a twig outside, now felt like a part of their orchestrated torment, designed to enhance my paranoia, to tighten the invisible noose of dread. I was not just being hunted, I was being dissected, my fear savored, my reactions analyzed. One of them, closer than the others, elongated, sharpened claws flexed and retracted, making faint clicking sounds against the damp stone floor. It was a deliberate action, a taunt. Its tapered head tilted, as if in silent inquiry. The secondary inner jaw, slick with unseen fluid, extended and retracted, a horrifying, silent threat. It wanted to see me break. It wanted to hear my scream. I pressed myself against the cold, damp rock wall, my breathing ragged, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The profound isolation of this alien world was absolute, a suffocating blanket that wrapped around my terror. There was no one, no help, only them, and the encroaching madness that mirrored their silent whispers. I had to fight, not for victory, but for defiance, for the last, desperate shred of my humanity. My blaster, clutched in my trembling hand, felt impossibly heavy. Its energy cells were almost depleted. One burst, maybe two, then nothing. The creatures began to move, subtly, silently, tightening their circle. Their predatory gait was unnervingly graceful, like shadows flowing across the ground. They were perfectly synchronized, a unified hunting collective. I tried to anticipate their movements, but their intelligence was alien, their tactics inscrutable. I fired a single shot, a desperate, wild burst aimed at the closest creature. The blaster bolt seared through the air, momentarily illuminating its sleek, chitinous form. It didn't react with a scream or a roar. It simply absorbed the hit, its dark skin rippling, then reforming, as if the energy had passed harmlessly through it. A low, unsettling vibration pulsed through the cave, a silent echo of contempt. My heart plummeted. My weapon was useless. Then, from the depths of the cave, a new sound. A faint, metallic clanging. The sound of metal against stone. It was coming from deeper within the rock, beyond the creatures. My mind, clinging to any shred of hope, recognized it. The drifter dash. The ship's wreckage. My long-range transponder. It was a desperate, suicidal gamble. But it was my only chance. I had to get past them. To get to the wreck. To activate the beacon. Even if it was just a whisper into the void. A final act of defiance against the overwhelming silence of this horrifying planet. I pushed myself off the wall, ignoring the searing pain in my injured arm, ignoring the trembling in my legs. My mind, though teetering on the edge, focused with a terrifying clarity on that distant metallic clang. Survive. Get to the ship. Fight. The creatures moved, faster this time, their silent forms converging, cutting off my path to the deeper cave. They were no longer playing. They were preparing for the kill. My internal monologue was a desperate, final scream. Not here. Not like this. I will not be your meal. I will not be your toy. I lunged, not towards an exit, but towards the closest creature, a desperate, irrational act of defiance. My unarmed hand lashed out, aiming for its head, a futile gesture against its chitinous armor. It reacted with blinding speed, its elongated arm snapping out, its sharp claws closing around my throat. The grip was impossibly strong, suffocating. My breath hitched, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. Its tapered head leaned in close, that secondary inner jaw extending, slick with unseen fluid, centimeters from my face. The low-frequency vibration intensified to an unbearable crescendo, drilling into my skull, a silent roar of triumph. It was savoring the moment, savoring my fear, enjoying the final act of its terrifying game. My vision blurred. Darkness encroached, swirling at the edges of my consciousness. The terror was absolute, overwhelming. I was trapped, helpless, consumed by the silent, predatory intelligence of the unknown. This was the climax, the final confrontation, and I was losing. But even as the darkness threatened to swallow me whole, a single thought, a desperate, final act of defiance, flared in my mind. Not yet. Not like this. I would fight until the very last breath, until the very last flicker of sanity. The horror of this planet, the sheer alienness of its silent predators, would be the last thing I knew. And the whispers of my own encroaching madness would be the only epitaph I would ever receive. The darkness that threatened to consume me was absolute, thick, and laced with the metallic tang of the creature's unseen fluids. Its grip on my throat was crushing, suffocating the last gasp of air from my lungs. The low-frequency vibration was a deafening roar in my skull, a silent symphony of triumph from the collective intelligence of the predators. My vision swam, speckled with phantom lights, as my consciousness teetered on the brink of oblivion. My internal monologue, a desperate, fractured scream, clung to the last vestiges of my identity. This is it. The end. But then, a jolt. Not from the creature, but from the crumbling rock wall behind me. A tremor. A deep, resonant groan that vibrated through the cavern, stronger, more profound than even the creature's silent hum. The forest, the planet itself, seemed to protest. The creature's grip on my throat subtly tightened, but its tapered head tilted, its silent gaze momentarily diverted towards the tremor. The low-frequency vibration from its collective softened, a flicker of something. Alarm? Confusion? My eyes, straining, darted towards the source of the tremor. A fissure, a thin, jagged crack, appeared in the seemingly solid rock of the cavern wall, snaking upwards towards the surface. And through it, a faint, reddish-orange glow, pulsating. Not natural. Not the bioluminescent fungi. This was energy. A power signature. My internal monologue, seizing on this impossible anomaly, screamed with a renewed, desperate hope. The drifter. The crash. The reactor core. It's still active. It's reaching critical mass. The very phenomenon that had crippled my ship, the silent null energy wave, was now destabilizing the planet itself, causing localized energy spikes, geological unrest. The creature's grip on my throat loosened a fraction, its elongated body tensing, its attention fully diverted to the escalating tremors. The low-frequency hum from its collective shifted, becoming erratic, discordant, reflecting a rare, unfamiliar uncertainty. They were intelligent, yes, But this was an unpredictable variable, a force beyond their control. With a final, desperate surge of adrenaline, I lashed out, not with my blaster, still clutched uselessly in my hand, but with the only weapon I had left, my mind. My terror, my rage, my sheer, unyielding will to survive. I focused it all, a raw, primal scream of defiance, pushing it directly against the creature's silent, telepathic presence. The creature recoiled, its slick, tapered head snapping back. The low-frequency vibration shrieked, a silent cacophony of pain and confusion. Its sharp claws raked against my throat, not severing, but tearing, leaving behind a searing pain that was a brutal reminder of my continued existence. It released me, its silent movements jerky, disoriented. I fell to the cold, damp cavern floor, coughing, gasping for air, clutching my bleeding throat. My vision swam, blurred by pain and the lingering effects of the creature's mental assault. The bioluminescent fungi pulsed violently, casting dancing shadows that writhed like tormented souls. The creatures, no longer moving with their synchronized, predatory grace, scattered, their silent forms melting back into the deeper shadows of the cave, their low-frequency hums discordant, fragmented. The tremor intensified, a deep, resonant groan from the very bowels of the planet. Rocks began to fall from the cavern ceiling, tearing through the hanging vines. This was my chance. A desperate, suicidal window of opportunity. The planet was tearing itself apart, and in its death throes, it was offering me a reprieve. I scrambled, crawling towards the newly opened fissure, towards the pulsating, reddish-orange glow. My body screamed in protest, every muscle aching, every bone protesting. My injured arm throbbed relentlessly, but the desperate need to escape, to survive, eclipsed all pain. I squeezed through the narrow, jagged fissure, tearing my flight suit further, feeling the rough stone scrape against my skin. The reddish-orange light intensified, blinding, radiating a searing heat that singed my remaining hair. I fell, tumbling into a deeper, narrower shaft, landing hard on a bed of loose rock and shattered metal. The smell of ozone and burning circuitry was overwhelming. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of molten durasteel. I pushed myself up, my vision clearing through the haze. And there it was, the wreckage of the Stardust Drifter Dash. Not the main hull, but a fractured section of the primary engineering bay, half buried in the rock, its reactor core still glowing with a dangerous, unstable energy. The source of the tremor. The core was leaking, overheating, reaching critical mass. My long-range transponder. It was there, mounted on the emergency beacon, still flickering with a faint, hopeful light. I dragged myself towards it, my body screaming, powered by sheer, desperate will. The creatures. They would be coming. They would sense the instability, the immense energy release. They would come to investigate, to hunt. My fingers, trembling, fumbled with the activation sequence. The air in the chamber was superheated, shimmering with distortion. The hum of the failing reactor core was a death knell, growing louder, more insistent. I slammed my palm onto the activation panel. The beacon flared, a blinding white light, emitting a piercing, high-frequency signal that vibrated through the chamber, through the asteroid, through the very fabric of the planet itself. It was a scream into the void, a desperate plea, but it was also a target. The low-frequency vibration returned. Stronger now, closer. From the fissure I had just escaped, they were coming, drawn by the raw energy, by the sudden, piercing sound of the beacon, by the palpable wave of my desperate hope. My internal monologue, stripped of all cynicism, filled with a terrifying, primal certainty. I'm still here. I survived. But they're coming. And I'm still their prey. The final outcome was ambiguous. The beacon was active, screaming its silent message into the vast, indifferent cosmos. But the reactor core was moments from exploding, threatening to atomize me and the surrounding forest. And the creatures, silent, relentless, were closing in. My fate was uncertain. I might escape this planet, a traumatized, broken shell of a man, forever haunted by the silent whispers of their haunt. Or I might be consumed by the exploding reactor, my end of fiery oblivion. Or, perhaps, they would reach me first, claiming their prey in the final, terrifying moments before the cataclysm. The horror was in the lasting psychological impact, the sheer alienness of my experience, the profound sense of dread that settled deep in my soul. I was Kalen Vance, a survivor. But I was also forever changed, haunted by the whispers from the shadows, forever seeing the unseen, forever listening for the silent hum of the ultimate predators. My nightmare had just begun. Immersive.